How's it going, viewers? Super Sam 6i7 here, and before I get to this video's topic, I just want to go ahead and show you a picture. Before I do, just keep in mind that this might not be completely legitimate, and it may shock you if it really is, so cling on to the edge of your seats, because that's what I did when I first saw it. Without further ado, here it is. So, yeah, this is a picture of the titles of the upcoming Marvel movies, and wow, if this really is the real deal, which I'm pretty sure it is, then this can be exciting. Yeah, so I got this picture from an inside source at Marvel, not Marvel, Disney, more specifically Disney Marvel Studios. So I'm pretty sure this is pretty legitimate, and also these dates seem pretty accurate, so I'm thinking most likely this is pretty accurate. But keeping that in mind, wow, there's some cool new movies coming up, and we already knew a few of them were coming. We didn't know what they were going to be, though, and we didn't know the storyline, and now knowing the titles, you can really guess a lot of the storyline from it. So I'm going to go ahead and start in chronological order, starting from Captain America. So here you go. Alright, so Captain America 3, The Fallen Soldier. Okay, this sounds like it's going to be interesting. So, the Fallen Soldier comic book was where Captain America was already dead, and now they're just trying to figure out what to do, like how to cope with it. And basically it involved a whole bunch of other superheroes, like Spider-Man was there, Wolverine was there, Iron Man was there. I mean, they can always substitute them out for different superheroes, but I definitely think there's going to be a lot of cameos of other heroes in this if they really do kill them off. And I'm thinking they kind of have to. I mean, they can't really use the Fallen Soldier title without really killing him off. So I'm thinking most likely he's going to die some point in this movie. Whether it's in the beginning, at the very end, I'm not entirely sure. I'm thinking most likely he's going to die towards the end of the movie. Not at the end. But there's probably going to be like 15 minutes left, and the rest of the movie is just going to be like what to do. Most likely, because after what the Winter Soldier showed, he's probably going to be looking for Bucky, and then he's probably going to die. Bucky's probably going to come in at the end of it and say, okay, I'm going to be the new Captain America. And because that's where the comics went, so I think that's pretty likely. And I'm excited to see that, although I'm a little bit conflicted on that because Avengers 3 is most likely going to need Captain America, and I'll get to that a little bit. So I'm not really sure how they can just get rid of him so fast right before Avengers 3. But, anything's possible. But yeah, I'm going to go on to the next one. Alright, so Doctor Strange. I'm kind of excited about this too. I like Doctor Strange. I like the comic books. And I really hope they stick to a lot of the comic book stuff. So in the comics, essentially, Doc Strange was a doctor, like a real doctor, but he was in a car accident, and he broke his hands, so he could no longer be a doctor. And he decided to take up a new practice, which was magic. So he studied and became a sorcerer, and then became the Sorcerer Supreme with his Eye of Agamotto. And so now he's the most powerful sorcerer ever, and so this kind of brings a new element to Marvel. I mean, before it was really just a lot of science technology. I mean, there's Iron Man, Hulk, and there's Thor, but they explain that Thor isn't actually magic. He's actually just like an alternate kind of science. So they kind of took the fun out of it. Yeah, so this is gonna add something completely new. I mean, we already know that they're trying to do that. They're trying to like introduce that with Scarlet Witch in Avengers 2, which is coming up. So yeah, but they're gonna really expand on it with him, like adding monsters and stuff like that, demons. And actually, the movie is supposed to have kind of a horror aspect to it, which is gonna be completely new point of view for Marvel. And I mean, it really works for this movie because there's monsters, demons. I mean, the main villain could be Dormammu, who has a fiery head and he's like a weird body, so that kind of deserves a horror movie for that, or a horror-ish movie. So I can't wait to see what they really do. All I know is that that's going to be pretty interesting. Alright, so Thor 3. So as you can tell from the title, it's called Thor 3 Ragnarok. Now, there are two Ragnaroks that I know from Thor. There is the giant serpent that tries to eat the sun, and there's the Thor clone that came in during the Civil War. Now, Thor clone, I mean, he really made his debut during the Civil War, but he was active a little bit more before and after. Like, he was kind of created before, but then he really shined through in the Civil War, and then he was kind of used a little bit more afterwards. But essentially, Ragnarok, the Thor clone, it was made during a time when Thor was presumed to be dead, whereas he was just in more like this unconsciousness kind of state. And so Tony Stark and Reed Richards copied his DNA, spliced it with some Stark technology, and turned him into a cyborg clone of Thor named Ragnarok, with all the abilities. But thing is that this is before the secret invasion, and so they kind of the Skrulls kind of basically sabotaged him and kind of messed up his database, like his memory frame and everything, and basically turned him into like an evil version of Thor. So when they originally unleashed him, they didn't know that during the Civil War, and he ended up killing an Avengers. So that could be who it is. I kind of doubt it, though, especially when there's the two little dots above the O, which seems like the serpent, because it seems kind of like more the mythology side. So I kind of doubt the Thor clone, but I'm thinking more of the serpent, because the serpent's supposed to appear when, like, all of Asgard's supposed to end. And so now at the end of Thor 2, Loki was seen there at the throne of Asgard instead of Odin. So I'm thinking most likely Loki's going to do something that could end the world, Ragnarok's going to come out, and Thor's going to have to kill him. Which is going to be pretty cool, because it's going to be awesome to see Thor fighting a giant snake who could eat him in one bite like he's an appetizer. So, yeah, I want to see how this goes. Once again, there's not a lot of details on it, and there's possible things that could happen, so I'm not entirely sure. Alright, so next up, the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Alright, so Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Recently, the Guardians of the Galaxy 1 movie came out, and it was a big success. So many people liked it. I loved it. I thought it was great. And they went to work immediately on the second one. And so the second one is, as you can see, Guardians of the Galaxy War of Kings. And so the War of Kings storyline was essentially where Vulcan led the Shi'ar army versus the Inhuman-led Kree army. And they introduced the Kree in Guardians of the Galaxy. They didn't introduce the Shi'ar. They could introduce the Shi'ar. But saying they didn't introduce the Inhumans yet. So I'm kind of doubting this entire storyline. They're probably going to change some aspects of it. Probably going to add Thanos into the mix and everything. But probably going to change a lot of it, because this is kind of a lot to put in one movie, and they'd be introducing so much too fast. So I really doubt it. I mean, probably at the end of the movie they're going to reveal Inhumans, but at like the after credit scene, so not before. Yeah, but they could introduce the Shi'ar. I could see them doing that. And then in the Kree, they were in Guardians of the Galaxy. They were led by Ronan the Accuser. So those were Ronan's people. So yeah, so they could have the Kree in there, but minus the Inhuman part. It would most likely be the Supreme Intelligence leading them, which was like a giant floating head, essentially. But yeah, so they could do something very similar to the War of Kings storyline. I mean, most likely they're going to change a lot of aspects of it. It's a mouthful to put in one movie. And that's why they had to split it up. There was War of Kings, and then there's the Aftermath, the Realm of Kings. They're going to have to put both of those two into one movie, So they're probably gonna have to dumb it down, take off different aspects, so much. But basically, I think the storyline's gonna be the same. Two different, like, I don't know, like, not like worlds, I guess, at war, and Guardians of the Galaxy are in the middle, trying to stop it all. So yeah, so that's most likely where they're gonna go with it. Okay, so next up, uh, Black Panther. So, I'm really excited for this. I love Black Panther. I knew there was most likely a movie coming for him. Once again, there's nothing for sure on him. Now, according to this, there is. So I'm happy about that. But yeah, so the original storyline was Black Panther was essentially he was a prince and in Wakanda, and basically how they rule their kingdom, I guess, is that basically if someone decides that they want to rule the kingdom, they can challenge the king, and if they can kill the king, they win. And so that's what happened with his dad. I don't know exactly how they're going to do that. They're probably going to change it, so I'm not going to go too far into the storyline. But yeah, so most likely that's probably going to be the beginning of the movie, probably the first 10 minutes of the movie. And then basically what happened was Black Panther fled, and then he returned again. In certain comics he returns with Avengers, but probably not going to have the Avengers in there. It's probably going to be all by himself. But yeah, he's probably going to do like a full-on hour of the movie of just probably training and stuff, or maybe like half an hour of the movie of just training, and then he's going to come back to Wakanda, challenge him and kill him, and he's going to become the new king of Wakanda, as was his birthright. So yeah, so I'm kind of excited for this. I love Black Panther, and essentially he's got a bunch of agility and cool vibranium weapons and stuff. And vibranium was already introduced in Captain America as being Cap's shield, but that was more like the metallic form of vibranium. The raw form of vibranium is like a purpley, glowy, fiery kind of metal. It looked really cool. I hope they do that. I really hope they don't just stick with the whole metal vibranium. I mean, I'm fine with that for Cap's shield, but not for Black Panther's weapons, because he had a lot of weapons that were all like purpley. Like he would have like these two blades on his fists that he would wear sometimes, and he would slice with them, and they'd look so cool with all the purple like oozing off of it. So I really hope they bring that through. Also, like Black Panther's look. I really hope they stick to the original look and not change him, because they've changed a lot of characters. I mean, just Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver alone, just looking from what Marvel's already released in pictures, they've changed their looks a lot, so I really hope they don't do that with Black Panther. It'd kind of be a shame for the character, because his look is pretty iconic. So, I mean, yeah, I really hope that his look stays, and he is probably going to be in Avengers 3. I'm not actually so sure if Doctor Strange is going to be in Avengers 3, but I'm pretty certain that Black Panther is, because he's a pretty classic Avenger. So by now, they kind of have to add him in. But yeah. So on the topic of the Avengers 3, Civil War. Okay, so Avengers 3 Civil War. And I talked about Civil War a little bit earlier with Ragnarok. And the thing is, Civil War, it was Tony Stark versus Captain America. And there's a thing called the Superhuman Registration Act, where essentially Steve Rogers was completely against it, and Tony Stark was completely for it, because he kind of thought of the idea, he kind of started it, because what it is every superhuman, I can't talk today, every superhuman has to basically admit publicly who they really are, what their identity is, and of course he has no problem with this, because he was the first one to do it. So and he wants everyone to do it. He thinks everyone should follow in his footsteps, because he's Tony Stark. Whereas Captain America thinks, heck no, everyone has their rights to privacy. Why should that be changed for just superheroes? And, because he's a very patriotic guy. He follows the laws. He does everything by the book. So he doesn't like it, and he wouldn't want it. But the thing is that with Cap 3, if he really does die in Fallen Sun, we may not see him, at least the Steve Rogers Captain America, in the movie. Instead, we might see a Bucky Captain America, which is a little bit different. It's one thing to see Steve Rogers fighting Tony Stark, but it's another to see Bucky Barnes fighting Tony Stark. If you know what I mean. It's just, I don't know, which is why I think they kind of have to have him in there, so, because in the comics he died at the end of the Civil War, not before it. So, if he really does die in Fallen Soldier, then they have to resurrect him at the beginning of Civil War and put him in there, because it won't be a Civil War movie without him. There's just no possible way they can do that. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I had to say. But a lot of the characters are gonna have to take out because of legal issues, and also that might be too much for one movie. They're probably gonna have the same Avengers as Avengers 2, but they're probably gonna add like Black Panther. Maybe Doctor Strange is gonna be in it. Maybe they might add a couple more. Who knows? All I know for sure is that because Spider-Man was a big part of Avengers, not Avengers, of Civil War, so they can't add him unless they get a really big contract signed, because Spider-Man is Sony, and we're talking about Disney, so they're never going to allow them to do that. But I do think that Ant-Man will be in there. If they do the Ragnarok storyline, like the clone Ragnarok storyline that I was talking about in Thor 3, and they bring him back for Civil War, then he's probably going to have to be there, because they're probably going to have to substitute out Reed Richards for him. Or at least Hank Pym, not Scott Lang. So who knows? Still a pretty big mystery. No one knows a lot of what's going on. Really, I mean, all I know so far is that it's going to be heroes fighting against heroes, most likely. There's not going to be any villains in there. If there are, they're going to be really minor villains that they can just kind of look past. Kind of like filler villains, kind of like how Batroc the Leaper was in Captain America 2. He wasn't really a big villain. He was only in there for 10 minutes, and he got beaten down pretty fast. So it's probably, if there are any villains, they're probably going to do it like that. If there aren't, then I think I know why, because it's just going to be heroes fighting against heroes. Probably going to be the split of the Avengers team, because a really big thing in the Civil War storyline was okay, who are the Avengers and who are not? Are Tony Stark's guys Avengers, or are Captain America's guys Avengers? They both call themselves Avengers, so it's pretty hard to fight each other. They're almost like brothers or siblings or whatever. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I can't wait for it. Unfortunately, that's years away, but one can always dream. Alright, so World War Hulk. This is probably going to follow, because I know that this follows Avengers 3, and it's probably going to follow right after the storyline. Probably at the end of Avengers 3, Hulk is probably going to do something where, because now in the comics there was this thing called the Illuminati, where it was like the leaders of the world, essentially, like the biggest superhero leaders. There was like Iron Man, Captain America, Black Panther, Doctor Strange. So they could really make an Illuminati for this movie, and so they could have it end as a Fallout 2, or they have it begin as a Fallout 2 Civil War, and then basically Hulk would do something, and they all decide, okay, we have to send Hulk away. He is no longer fit to live on Earth. He's too rampagey and everything, because that's how it was in the comics. So they could do it that way because now they pretty much have most of the Illuminati. The rest of which they can't do, like they can't add because, I mean, there's Black Bolt to the Inhumans, which I'm going to get to. They can't really add him because they haven't had their movie yet. They can't add Charles Xavier because wrong franchise. Once again, he's from the X-Men. X-Men are Fox, so they can't add Professor X. And then there's also Namor, who is also entitled to X-Men, so they can't add him either. So they already have most of the Illuminati. I think that if they do have the Illuminati, that's who it's going to be. Maybe they'll add someone else. Who knows? All I know is that I'm thinking most likely they're going to show up, and they're going to be the cause of World War Hulk. Basically, World War Hulk, he's sent off Earth, he goes to this planet called Sakaar, and basically he becomes their ruler by, like, in a fighting arena, and then he decides, you know what, now that I have a fleet and everything, I'm going to go back to Earth and show him who's boss. He goes back to Earth, and essentially he has an army now, and it takes a lot for the rest of the Earth to kind of pummel him back to his better state. So, yeah, so that could be an entire movie. Like, that could be the entire movie, which I'm really hoping it is. I could really see that as a movie. There was an animated movie for it, but I didn't see it. It didn't seem as good as it could have been if it was like this. So, I do hope they keep Mark Ruffalo for that. I think he's a pretty good Hulk. And we'll just have to wait and see. That's a little while away. Okay, so the Inhumans. Whoa. Okay, so I like the Inhumans from the comics. They're a really good storyline, and they have already set up where they could actually introduce them now. Unfortunately, that's 2019, so that's pretty far from now. It's 5 years. But I could already see where they're vaguely going to go with this. Just seeing as they've already introduced the Kree, and they could have the Illuminati coming. They might be introducing the Inhumans. Like I said, they might be introducing them at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and the after credit scene. And if so, then yay, my prediction was right. If you're watching this and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 already came out, and I'm right, post a comment. Yeah, so if they really do, and they hold it off for a few years, and they kind of let it settle until they kind of form this movie, it would really make a lot of sense. And also, my personal theory of mine of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the show, by the way, if you're watching this in like a year or two or a few months, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. hasn't started yet. So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, I should be specific. Season 1 has already ended. I'm thinking that most likely Skye's parents were Inhumans, which is why they were considered to be monsters, which is why she's not perfectly human, which would make sense for why the GH325 would have no effects on her, except for the healing property. So yeah, so that being said, if my theory is correct, then they're using Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a leg up towards the Inhumans, which really could be. They could be starting this far back. I mean, they started Avengers, like, they started working on the Avengers saga, like, all the way back in 2008, and then the movie came out in 2012. So they were working up to the Avengers for 4 years. They could be working up to Inhumans for 5 years. It's possible. Yeah, so basically the Inhumans are genetically modified humans, and they were modified by the Kree, and so basically they have a whole kingdom ruled by Black Bolt, who was a member of the Illuminati in the comic books, who, if they do make Illuminati, I think he will eventually be a part of it. But yeah, that's... ignore that. That's really, I mean, what I have to say for that movie. I'm really excited for it. I can't wait to see what they do with it. It's 5 years away, so we're not going to get any information anytime soon. It's going to be 4 years until there's any information on it. So that being said, I think it's about time to end the video. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a like. If you liked me, feel free to subscribe. But that's it for this video, and I will see you next time.